So in this lesson, we are going to look at a quick summary of graphing patterns and equations. So if you haven't done the investigation from the previous lesson, please make sure you go back and look at that video just to get an understanding of where this summary is coming from. So in general, we have a general equation for our general rules or patterns that we come up with, that is y equals mx plus b. Now you're going to be seeing that a lot, you're going to be hearing that equation a lot, so again, you might get sick of it. Keep in mind, we talked about how you might also write it as y equals b plus mx. We talked about it might make more sense if we start with the starting value and then show what we're increasing by every time. Still the same equation, just rearranged differently. Some key things that we need to know. There are two key pieces of our equation. M, and M is known as the slope, multiplier, or rate of change. You could also say it refers to the steepness. As we talked about the multiplier, the slope, it tells us the steepness of the graph. Now, the larger the multiplier, we talked about the faster the pattern grows. The smaller the multiplier, the slower the pattern grows. So again, we've referred to that before as well. A positive multiplier goes up and to the right. You might think of also saying that it's increasing. A negative multiplier goes down and to the right. Or you might say decreasing, which makes sense because the multiplier is what we're changing by every time, going from one position to the next. So if it was a positive multiplier, we'd be increasing. If it was a negative, we'd be decreasing. Graphically, it would look something like that. That's our positive multiplier. Negative multiplier looks something like that. It's decreasing. It's going down. The second key piece of our equation is the b value. And the b value is known as the y-intercept. So that was the new term that we learned in the investigation. It is also known as the constant or the starting value. Again, the constant because it's a number on its own, there's no variable attached. Starting values because that is what happens at position 0 or when x equals 0. So again, this value, this constant, this y-intercept, this determines where the line crosses or will cross the y-axis. So it does give you a starting point, it does give you a point of reference on an actual graph. Now there is some additional information, some additional terms that you may want to know. An equation, or if an equation represents a direct variation, it is in the form y equals mx, which means the y-intercept is 0. So we looked at some equations where in the investigation where the constant was 0. If the equation represents a partial variation, it has the form y equals mx plus b, and then the y-intercept is whatever the b value is. Now, I know we were saying that the equation, the general rule, is y equals mx plus b. That is still the case for the direct variation. The only thing is, if we have y equals mx plus a constant of 0, I don't need to show that constant because it doesn't change anything. So that's why we have y equals mx. Technically, there is a b value there, but the value is going to be 0, so we don't need to include it. So again, that was just a quick summary of graphing patterns and equations. Again, just kind of going over, referring to the two key points or key values in your general equation for a linear pattern and what it can tell us both about the pattern itself and about the graph that we'd be looking at.